Hello and good evening. Welcome to Equipped Live. My name is Jackie, for those of you who may not be aware yet. We are going to talk today on Equipped Live with Greg Winter, and Greg is going to tell us about a lesson he learned the hard way in the history of the IFMC. I think you will be interested to hear the story and the things that he has learned from it. So we are going to get him live and let him tell his story. Hi, Greg. Are you ready to share the big mistakes that you made?
I am. Well, thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, well, I'm
I
going to
think
just
it'll
let you dive right in.
sounds good. Uh, I think it'll be helpful if I go all the way back to the farm and just kind of start out with some history there, just for context. And as most folks already know, I grew up on a farm in Hubbard Lake, and my dad had a pretty well equipped but small workshop on the farm. It had metalworking and woodworking equipment in it. And I was really fortunate in that he, at a very early age, allowed me to use that. And of course, I didn't really understand and certainly wasn't a craftsman at that point. And so I ended up creating a lot of waste, ruining some tools, even ruining some equipment. But he was very tolerant of that. And as a result of that, I ended up with a pretty good education, although it was expensive for him. But as the result of that, I ended up being able to help friends with projects and so forth, and ended up with a reputation for knowing how to make cars go fast. And so that caused a little flow of vehicles in our yard for me to repair. And there was enough of that going on that while I was in high school, my dad helped me remodel one of the stables in one of our barns into a little machine shop. And so now we went from a 500 square foot workshop to an 1,100 square foot machine shop in the stable of a barn. And that might not seem like much today, but that was a big accomplishment for me at that point. In 1974, I ended up graduating from high school. In 75, my brother Ron ended up parting ways with a couple fellows he was in business with, and he ended up coming out to the farm and joining me in that 1,100 square foot stable. Within a year, we had put up a 3,200 square foot building, and we were working out of that. By 1976, we had purchased the building that's now known as 1995 at the corner of Hamilton Road and US 23 North. And in summer of 76 is when we also formed Omni Metalcraft. And so now we had gone from 1,100 square feet to 3,200 square feet to 10,000 square foot. And then that was in 76. In 77, Deb joined us, and primarily Ron and Deb focused on sales, engineering, accounting. I ended up focusing on manufacturing. Somewhere between 77 and 78, we ended up doubling the size of the manufacturing facility now to 20,000 square foot. And so now I'm 22 years old. You know, that's been quite a ride. And you know, some of the folks here will understand I'm always seeking what we call Fibonacci growth. And of course that's quite a bit faster than Fibonacci growth. And that's quite a strain to do that. And so I really focused a lot on the technical side, really focused a lot on manufacturing, had not focused very much on people skills, and it showed. But I was, at that point, I didn't really realize that. I was overestimating my abilities quite a bit and pretty self-confident in how things should be done. At that point, that was Omni Metalcraft. Omni had grown to about 25 employees, some of those folks in the shop were 2, maybe 3 decades older than I was. Some of them very nice people trying to help me understand that maybe there were some things I should work on with the people skills. But I had grown up on the farm. You make hay when the sun shines. I mean, so when you've got orders, you work. And so I just had never worked in a typical 8-hour-a-day schedule or anything like that. And I just expected that everybody else was going to behave like we did on the farm. And if they couldn't do the work, I was pretty quick to discharge them and replace them. And so it was a tough environment. Quite frankly, I wouldn't have worked for myself. I mean, I wouldn't have worked for someone like me. And some of those guys tried to help me understand that, but I was pretty sure I knew the answers and didn't need that advice. So in '79, the guys in the shop ended up going out on strike. And that was really, really ugly. A few of the guys did cross the picket line and continue to work. A number of folks ended up with financial hardship as a result of it. There were nails thrown in the driveway almost every morning. Windows got broken, vehicles got damaged, lots and lots of harsh words and even death threats against me. And as I look back, I can only blame myself. I mean, I pretty much treated people in a way that caused them to behave that way, and that it was just an ugly situation. But now the strike is on. I'm trying to figure out, how do I explain to these people how wrong they are and how right I am? And of course, that's a challenge. But I started reading psychology books and studying management books and trying to understand just what was going on and what the errors were there. And at 7 months into the strike, it hit me like a bolt of lightning, and it was powerful. It hurt, but I realized it wasn't the guys in the shop, it was me. And while that was really painful, I almost immediately could see what I needed to do in order to try to fix that. And so I ended up making really 3 key decisions. And those key decisions were to always strive to apply the golden rule, to quit trying to change others and focus more on changing myself, and to always strive to participate in win-win relationships. I've got a long ways to go before I achieve perfection in any of those, even now, but I can link pretty clearly those decisions to most of the good fortune that I've had over the last few decades. And if I talk a little bit more about each one of those, the golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say about that. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm sure all of us have experienced that some people treat us in a way that we enjoy. Other people treat us in ways we don't enjoy. And so it's, at a concept level, pretty simple. Just treat other people like you enjoy. That is easier to say than it is to do. But if you, well, as I try to understand where somebody's coming from, I try to mentally slip into their shoes, I still find myself making different choices. And so I encourage everybody to try to do that. The second decision, quit trying to change others and instead focus on changing myself. Again, a concept that's pretty easy to understand, but most people, including me, find that challenging. And I mentioned earlier that to a great degree, the way people react to you or to me is a reflection of me. And so if I'm cheerful and I'm smiling, people tend to reflect that cheerfulness back. If I'm angry, people will tend to respond with anger. If I blame others, people will respond by blaming me. And yeah, I think that's certainly the way I've experienced the world, and I think that's the way a lot of people do. My guess is that some people right now are already thinking of names and thinking of other people and saying, boy, I wish somebody was listening to this right now. But if you think about that very thought implies that somebody else needs to change, not you. And so again, easier to talk about, much more challenging to do. The book that really helped me see that or understand that was a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. That's authored by the Arbinger Institute, national bestseller. I've recommended that a lot to people, and I've had several people actually years later tell me that book has changed their life. And so that is, I think, a pretty powerful endorsement. Third decision was to strive to participate in more win-win relationships. Most kids at early ages are participating in games that are based on win-lose. And while certainly there's plenty of appropriate circumstances for win-lose, in business and in life, there's a lot of situations where there's opportunity for everyone to mutually benefit. And really, you can achieve that by, and my guess is most people have heard the analogy of not squabbling over how to divide the existing pie, but focus on making the pie larger. And in order to do that, you really need to focus less on doing something your way or doing something my way, but focus on how do we together create a better way. And if that's the approach, and you're trying to grow the opportunity as opposed to divide up what exists, that works pretty well. Again, whatever success I've achieved in the last few decades, I can pretty clearly link that to focusing on win-win relationships and helping others to be more successful.
Greg,
go ahead.
We have a couple minutes. Question: how did the strike influence or change or strengthen your relationship with your brother and sister at that time? Were they harping on you to change your perspective, or were they right along with you?
This might be my lack of awareness, but I don't remember any input from Ron and Deb on that. I think we were all just so busy. When you look at the growth that I was describing there, I mean, that's just breakneck speed. And so we were so busy, focused on the areas that we were really good at. And one of the cool things there, during that time, Deb was programming our first computer. And I mean, that was pretty leading edge stuff at the time. And so we ended up buying I think it was a TI 990 computer. The thing it was a great big desk size outfit. that had less horsepower than your phone does now, 13.5-inch floppy disks. But they're, small businesses most of them didn't have that kind of stuff. So that was pretty leading edge. Deb had never programmed computers, had never done anything like that. Tried to take a class at Alpena Community College. They didn't have one to offer. So she ended up just studying the book, starting to write programs, and as a result of that, ended up with the accounting programs that we have, and even some of the early engineering programs that we have. So she was so focused on that. I was focused on what I was doing. Ron was focused on sales, engineering. They're just, I don't remember there being time.
Well, maybe a future episode of this, we'll get Deb on here and ask her what she was really thinking during that time.
That would be fair.
Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our time. I think I may have interrupted you, and you're going to put a little bit more to that if you wanted to finish up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about Stephen Covey. He has a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Again, a national bestseller. The fourth habit is think win-win. And there again, I highly recommend that book.
It's a fantastic book for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
After I experienced my little epiphany, I started visiting the picket line every day. And of course, the guys on the picket line were a little bit suspicious of my motives, because while I knew I had changed or started to change, of course, they had no way of knowing that. So they were kind of wondering what I was up to. But after a couple months of that, we did end up settling the strike. A number of people were very bitter about that for years. Very few of them returned to work. The battle scars from that lasted for years. But I look at that and really, I've got confidence that those 3 key decisions and those key principles, really resulting from both sides applying those principles, really did help with that healing process. And today I think there's a really good dose of mutual respect and teamwork. And a few of the folks that went through that strike and were on the picket line played really key roles in our organization. So even though I haven't implemented those decisions and principles perfectly, that's really impacted almost all areas of my life. And so my hope really is that maybe I've planted a couple seeds here today, and hopefully some of you will cultivate those, and maybe that'll significantly change your life. And I'll wrap it up with a quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he's able to say all the things I said, but just in one nice, concise sentence, and that is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's a really good quote. Thank you so much. I think that the value in retelling this story, new people coming into the IFMC are so far removed from that time that they don't know about it. So I think retelling it is really valuable to have them understand the history of the organization and who you are and what the IFMC has been through over the years. And I did not know that it was that long of a strike. So that was really interesting to me to hear that today. So, all right, for those attending, thank you so much. We will have another event in July. We'll get that date out to everybody as soon as we figure it out with the topic. And have a wonderful evening, and we will see you soon. Bye.